Chapter 2: Tables and Equipment. In this section, we'll be taking a closer look at the actual tables themselves and the equipment used during the game. The Baccarat table's size and shape can vary greatly, which can often affect the way the game is played, so it's important to know what these styles are before you actually sit down to play. Okay, so let's start off with the older, more traditional style of table, as described in the previous chapter. This table offers 12 to 16 places for seated players, and there's no limit for standing players. And the game is usually played at a fairly slow pace. There are 2 to 3 dealers, one to control the cards using the palette, and the 2 remaining dealers handle the cash and the payouts. The shoe is passed around the table counterclockwise from player to player, as they take it in turns to be banker. This means that they're the one who controls the cards. Being the banker does not mean they control the bank. It's simply there to generate interest by encouraging the player to take an active role in dealing the game. They place their bets, same as all the other players. In fact, they must have a wager on the table if they want to control the shoe, and they will win and lose the same as everybody else. All they need to do is to draw the cards, and the dealer takes care of the rest. When the bank wins, the shoe stays where it is. When there's a player hand win, then the shoe is passed on to the next player in line. It's as simple as that. This handing of the cards is very good for the player, as it gives them a feeling of being involved. Also comfort in the knowledge that perhaps they have some kind of control over the game, albeit if that control is only how fast or slow the cards are dealt. Not so good for the house though, because a slow game can affect the turnover, which in all honesty is why the game has changed so much over the years. Next up, we have the midi table. This is by far the most popular table, particularly across Asia. Here we have one dealer, usually seated, who controls the entire game from up to 8 players seated. The number of player positions can vary significantly depending on the operator's preferences. For instance, 3 positions is fairly common in some VIP rooms. On the midi table, the shoe remains stationary, making the game a lot faster than its traditional version. This is a big advantage for the operator, as it cuts down all of that shoe movement and player interaction. However, player interaction, such as in the squeeze game, which is still very active in casinos these days, does affect the game pace, but more about that later. The design of table can vary significantly depending on what country you're in and the operator preferences, with differences in both shape and table markings. One common variation features 2 or more tables joined together, sharing the same dealing shoe. Then we have the D-shaped table. This familiar style of table is synonymous with blackjack and other popular casino games. Usually the cards on this style of game are dealt open by the dealer, with little or no player interaction, making it a much faster game. Note that the cards can be dealt either face up, that's open, or face down, which is closed on all Baccarat games, as this does not affect the outcome. Closed hands are usually more popular though, as it provides a little more excitement to a somewhat sedate game. When the cards are finally open, at the end of the coup, this is usually accompanied by much cheering and applause, and then slamming down of cards. Well, either that or lots of groaning, depending on which way the result went. Our next 2 tables are not strictly tables at all, but they deserve a mention nonetheless. The low minimum mass market side combines live action with electronics, often referred to as stadium baccarat. This may come in the form of a live dealer dealing cards with the process and the outcome linked directly to a TV monitor, and electronic betting terminals, where any number of players can sit and play. The same console may also be linked to a live roulette wheel and other virtual games. Note, however, that these type of games are best avoided, as they encourage the player to play multiple games simultaneously, and that can lead to a very negative outcome. And finally, this list would not be complete without mentioning fast action Baccarat. This game is exclusive to Sands China and can be found in the Venetian, Macau. FAB, as it's commonly known, would put the old age traditionalists head in a spin. The game itself has around 60 players, with 26 or so seated around a boat-shaped pit where two dealers with mobile floats run up and down, making payouts as the cards are dealt and the outcome is verified. Each betting area is equipped with an acrylic shield that shoots up every time no more bets is announced. This is to prevent any nefarious activity like past posting, which is placing bets after the outcome has been verified. Naughty, naughty. Casino operators design their tables around various factors, some of those being game security, customer comfort, dealer ergonomics, aesthetics, game pace, or all the above. Not all designs are presented here, but I think you get the idea. Now that we have all the tables sorted out, let's take a closer look at the actual layouts and use the MIDI table as our example. The table's surface, as with most casinos, is usually constructed of MDF or plywood and covered with a finely woven durable cloth, the layout. Between the two lies a thin layer of foam or other such material. Both layout and padding serve to assist the dealer when handling cards and chips during the course of play. It also acts as a good buffer from pounding betting chips from excited players. The layout is divided into several numbered player positions, depending on the size and the design of the table. Often, the table numbers omit the number 4. This is because the game is very popular with players from the Far East, and in Chinese culture, 4 is an unlucky number, owed to the fact that the word itself has a similar sounding to the word death in Chinese. You may also find 13 excluded for those of you suffering from triskaidekaphobia, as this, coincidentally, also relates to death in tarot. In its simplest form, each position is marked with 3 betting areas: the player, the banker, and the tie bet, or égalité. There are also some common and not so common side bets, which we'll cover later. As with most games, the dealer is seated directly opposite the players. In front of the dealer will be their float tray containing cash chips of varying denominations. To the dealer's left will be the dealing shoe, usually an electronic shoe, as few casinos use manual shoes these days. And to the dealer's right, a rack or card bin for the use of used playing cards, or the discard. Markings on the table directly in front of the dealer indicate where the cards are to be placed during the game. Usually marked player, right of centre, and banker, left of centre, or vice versa if you're looking at it from the player's point of view. The game is traditionally played with 8 decks of cards. You might find it played with less than 8 decks, but 8 decks is the more common. These are standard decks, 52 cards in each, that will either be shuffled by the dealer prior to play or come in the form of one-use pre-shuffle packs. Pre-shuffle decks come in sealed boxes direct from the manufacturer. The box seal is only broken at the gaming table prior to immediate use, and often given a quick riffle shuffle for good measure, before they're handed off to the player to cut. Pre-shuffle cards have been around for a long time, and they're now the main source of cards used on Baccarat over Far East Asia and beyond, and become the more trusted alternative to the dealer shuffled version. They're also a big time saver for the casino operators who want to keep games moving. You'll also see 2 cutting cards, player banker marker button, and table limit signs informing players of the minimum and maximum at the tables. There's also an electronic display or similar device showing the game result and recording the trend. This is normally linked to an intelligence shoe that passes game information directly to the readout. There are always new pieces of equipment and technology popping up on a fairly regular basis, so if there's anything you're not too sure about, you can always ask. Hope that helps.